Once the root structure of your learning portfolio is complete, it's time to start adding evidence. Think of collecting evidence for your professional portfolio like collecting evidence for a court case. You're representing yourself, and your arguments relate to what you've learned. Evidence needs to be collected to prove your case. So, what would be considered good evidence for learning? I've asked my students to help me explain.
First, eyewitness testimony. If one of your goals is to share your work with others, you might collect some evidence that proves that your work has been made public. For example, if you presented at a conference and someone tweeted about your presentation or emailed you afterwards, a screenshot of that tweet or email would count as evidence towards your goal. If your goal was to just get out there and share something on Teachers Pay Teachers, a screenshot of the webpage with your lesson on it would suffice as evidence. If someone could search and find your lesson on Teachers Pay Teachers, it's obvious that the goal was met. If you set up a one-on-one meeting with another teacher to share something, and that teacher emailed you afterwards saying thank you, or something like that, a copy of that email would be great evidence.
Second, self-generated documents and digital resources. Almost anything that you create that relates to one of your goals can make a good artifact. If one of your goals was to develop new ways to improve writing literacy, you might include 1 or 2 lessons you designed this year. Even better, you could also include the student work to go along with it. If one of your goals was to blog, you could include a link to your blog. If you had a goal to read 1 book a semester, a paper or reflection on the book would be a great evidence that you read it. Self-generated documents and digital resources are fantastic evidence of growth.
Finally, photos, audio, video, or multimedia files can also work as evidence. If one of your goals was to learn how to make tutorials with an app, a copy of that video on your website would be great evidence of growth. If your goal is to participate in a few Twitter chats, you can include screenshots of parts of the chat, or if a moderator shared a store file with you, you could embed that into your portfolio. If your goal is to break down the walls of the classroom and invite an outside speaker or Skype in a professional, pictures of that would be great.
So, eyewitness testimony, self-generated documents, and digital resources are effective forms of evidence, but there are also bad examples of evidence. Bad evidence doesn't actually show anyone what you learned. Examples of this might be a link to a book you claim to have read. A link doesn't actually prove you read it or learned from it. To make this better, you would have to show that you learned from it by writing a review of the book or showing how you applied it in your teaching practice.
Another example of bad evidence would be a lesson that was created by someone else. In order to make this a good artifact, you would have to show how you directly used it or applied it. This evidence might be in the form of a student evaluation, a recording of you teaching the lesson, or some samples of student work. Somehow, you need to show how you use it and use it well.
Lastly, you might include an artifact that doesn't relate directly to one of your goals. If this is the case, update your goals to match so that the evidence accurately reflects your growth. This year you have incredible autonomy over your goals. Use that to your advantage as you build this learning portfolio.
You might be thinking, what is this going to look like when I'm all done? What does one piece of evidence look like? Well, it will likely consist of 3 parts: a descriptive title, the evidence, and a reflection that describes how this artifact fulfills your goal. You're welcome to reflect more and talk about how you would do things differently next year as well. You might even write like you're talking to other teachers or recommending a best practice.
Professional development on January 27th is about reflection and planning for the future. We just completed the first semester. How have you grown, and how will you prove that growth? Some examples of good evidence include eyewitness testimony, self-generated documents, photos, videos, and other multimedia resources. If it shows what you learned, it will help your case. Please know that you're not on trial. You're not going to jail if you don't meet these criteria, but one of our core values is continuous improvement and reflection. These learning portfolios line up perfectly with that value, and they will encourage us to stay focused on growing. It's not my expectation that you update these portfolios every week. If it were me, I would probably work on my portfolio about once a quarter. Keep your goals in the back of your mind and collect evidence when you come across it. Thank you for all you do, and thank you for your continuous dedication to lifelong learning.